Order a special meeting of the Durant City Council. Will, if you would please stand and join me in an invocation and a flag salute. Let's all pray together. If you would bow with me. God, our Father in heaven, God, we're so thankful that you love us, that you watch after us. We're thankful that you're here in our presence. God, we just pray for your wisdom, your courage, your strength, your guidance. God, please help us in the decisions that we make. Help us in the things we do to make Durant a better city. Help us to do everything we can to improve the lives of our citizens and to improve the economy of our town and to help grow this region. God, I pray your blessing on everyone who's here and on their families, and pray that you would watch over each of us and bless us all the things that we do. Thank you so much for Jesus, who's our Savior. In his name we pray. Amen. If you would please join me in a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much, and please be seated. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Scheer.
Here.
Councilmember Fuller. Here. Vice Mayor Simulescu. Here. Mayor Tucker.
Here. So we have a quorum, so now we're officially in an official city council meeting. And as far as the agenda goes, that's about as far as we got. This is a town hall meeting for you to talk about the upcoming sales tax election that is scheduled for February the 13th, to answer questions, if you have any, about the proposition that will be put to the Durant City voters. And we have a very brief PowerPoint presentation. If I could lead you or read you through these pages that was put together by our public information officer. So the second page starts with the overview, and hopefully it'll pop up on the screens. Or did you bring me the clicker back? Here it is. Overview. So we've done a couple of these events with a couple of the civic clubs, and we're doing more. We have several scheduled. But one of the things that we have to lead with, and then I hope to finish with again tonight, is this is not a tax increase. This is not a new tax. This is not a debt. This does not increase anything on the taxpayers or the citizens of the city of Durant. This is keeping in place a sales tax that has been in place for some time. The purpose of this whole initiative is to extend the life of this sales tax and then to repurpose it into more capital improvement projects. And so I'm terrible at reading slides. I'm not going to read them. Ann Chin has done a ton of research, and with her finance doctoral degree, and estimates that it will generate about $2.6 million annually for capital improvement projects. And in our resolution, it is to pay for replacement maintenance of streets, water, stormwater, and wastewater systems. And then, of course, some of these are more than 70 years old. And again, when we get to the end of this, I'll repeat that this is not an increase in taxes, and this is not a debt that the city is going to take on. The next page, we'll talk about how the tax burden is sliced up. The city received for operations, it's difficult to read on this slide, 2 cents. That goes into the general fund. That's what we run the city on. And if you look at those other pieces of pie, that blue slice is the 2 cents. The orange slice is 5/8 of a cent that goes to the education fund. Okay, it's primarily for the high school, but also for the elementary school. The lighter blue goes to the Southeastern Oklahoma State University, and this is part of that Durant City Facilities Authority. This is one of the 1/4 cent sales taxes that we propose to extend. The next one down, the purple slice, is a 1/4 cent sales tax for the Durant City Facilities Authority that goes to the multi-sports complex. That is the other 1/4 cent of sales tax that we asked to repurpose into a 1/2 cent continuance of sales tax for the city of Durant. Below that is a 1/4 cent sales tax that goes into the Economic Development Fund, which has proven to be very valuable for the city of Durant. And then finally is a 1% sales tax fund. So that is how the sales tax is currently sliced up that the city of Durant receives. Now, one of the questions, and I don't think it's in the slide here, but I have a separate handout over on the table if you want to look at it. That doesn't add up to the total tax bite for the city of Durant, because the total tax bite's 9 3/8%. But you have to remember, a big portion of that is passed through straight to the state, and a substantial portion of that's passed through straight to the county. So then the remainder of that is what the city gets to keep. And then out of that 9 3/8, again, only 2 of those cents go into the general operating fund to run the city. So the next slide will show feedback. In just a moment, I'm going to hand this off to the Vice Mayor to read a couple of these slides. He's really good at this, by the way. One of the things that we learned during a community perception survey, you'll remember that hasn't been that long ago. We polled the citizens of Durant, and the number one issue was infrastructure. And so we think about infrastructure. A lot of people think in terms of potholes on the streets, right? And I can agree with that, because I drive the same streets that you all do. But from the city's perspective, in addition to just potholes on the streets, we think about the wastewater treatment facility. We think about the water treatment facility. We think about the bridges and the roads. We think about stormwater as well, which hasn't had a lot of attention paid to it. So there are tons and tons and tons of things that need to be done to bring the infrastructure of the city of Durant back up to what we would consider to be an acceptable level. And keep in mind, at the same time, we're trying to get that done with a very limited resource. The city of Durant's growing like crazy. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the country, probably. I know we're in the top 30 in the whole country over the last 10 years. So keeping up with that growth, in addition to maintaining what we have, is proven to be a big burden. And this is what we're asking the citizens of Durant to help us to pay for. So, Vice Mayor.
So one of the things we had talked about, and besides the, most of the people, 73% wanting more roads and infrastructure improvements, I hear a lot of times, well, we want more businesses, more places to shop, more places to eat, national chains, those type of things. When you have a city that's struggling with its infrastructure, it's hard to bring those places in. We can't bring them in by ordering a company to come in and say, hey, you got to establish here. That's not how that works. This is a capitalist economy. So, but if we have good infrastructure, good leadership, those type of things, then they'll say, well, look, Durant's growing, their roads are improving, people are excited to move there. Hey, we want our businesses to be there, and we've had some success in that in the past, and we continue to do that. We have from a growth perspective, as that growth has come up from Dallas, Sherman, Denison, they're booming right now, and you got to keep that in mind. Their tax structures are different, so they can do a lot more to improve their infrastructure, but this is what we're dealing with here, and I think a lot of that growth is coming or is already here, and if we don't start to deal with it now, we're not going to be able to grow like we're supposed to. It's going to grow, but it's going to be just more crowded. The infrastructure is going to get worse, and there's going to be more problems. So that's why we need to start on this half cent. When I talked about proactive and non-reactive government, I think this is proactive. Too long we have done this, where the citizens of Durant have been very generous with their tax dollars. We got a new high school. We have the sports complex, the Southeastern Arena, the football stadium. All those things were done through taxpayer dollars. And the citizens of Durant have been very generous, and we want them to be generous again to help fund these projects, to improve our streets, our water, all the things that we all want, and that will bring some of these businesses and growth that we are experiencing to be proactive to these situations in which we haven't been able to in the past. So those are the type of things that we are looking for in this sales tax extension. The other thing is, what's at stake? So conservative estimate, $65 million over 25 years.
Slide.
Oh, next slide. $65 million over the next 25 years. This does sunset 25 years from when it starts. So that's a conservative estimate, but that's reasonable. Sales tax could be a little bit volatile. So we hope that, potentially as we grow, more sales tax, more businesses come to town, we can increase our revenue from that standpoint. But this is really a 25-year investment in city infrastructure. This isn't hey, we're just going to do a bunch of projects and then we're going to pay the debt off over the next 25 years. That's not the goal here. The goal is to to do projects big and small to further the issues that we have and to prepare for that growth that's coming. So that's our goal. And also to take some of the pressures off the general fund and that 1% infrastructure that we do have. I don't think most people are aware that the city, even though we do run off 2%, most of that goes to police and fire. Everything else, and then we transfer money from utilities to cover general expenditures. So the city is not flush with cash. This will help increase and push forward the need for critical infrastructure improvements, roads, sewer, water, stormwater, all those type of things that will encourage those businesses and homes and people that are coming, and also help the quality of life of the people that are here. I think that's important as well. This is one of those things where a rising tide lifts all boats, and I think we should vote for this.
Any more slides on that?
Let me see what else we got. So a couple of projects, I think that's the last one. For example, Main Street is a project that previous council had borrowed some money for. University was first, Main Street is second. We don't have enough money to complete the initial project, just cost overruns and inflation and all the things that everybody's been struggling with the last couple of years. But Main Street in phases is a project we need to expand. We need to fix our drainage. We need to expand, widen this stretch, and we need to pretty much redo from 21st all the way to 1st. We also, next slide, for example, Larkspur is an area that we've recognized is a big developing area. Needs to be widened. It's unsafe. There's a lot of, there's a new school. Victory Life is expanding. There's new developments back there, so this needs to be expanded, widened, straightened, made more safe for our residents, because it's already pretty crowded, and the more we grow in that direction, we're going to need to have further development there and improvements. And those are the type of projects we're talking about here. These are critical streets, water infrastructure, utility movements, things like that. This is the kind of things we're looking to do when it comes to this half cent. If you go to the next slide, that's Larkspur again. Keep going. All right. So this is kind of what we want to see. So we did $1.2 million in mill and overlay work over the last year, and these are the type of things that we want to see in the city of Durant: repave roads, improve our infrastructure across the board. So those are the type of things we would like to do over there. And this is a 25-year thing. So this isn't, hey, the council currently is going to take all that money and spend it. That's not the thing. This is a 25-year investment like we've done in the past.
Next slide.
I think that's that's the completed mill and overlay on Rodeo, I believe.
And then the last slide.
And this is your proposition. You want me to read the whole thing?
Nope.
Okay. So there's your proposition. It's up there. It's February 13th in 2024. There's a process. There's a part that talks about debt service, which everybody asks about. That is really, if we do take debt on from projects here, we'll have to pay that debt back from this half cent. It takes a little bit of time for that half cent to populate in the bank account, as you know. So if there are projects that we need to borrow for initially, then they'll have to be paid back from this. But that's what that debt service, there was a question about that. I did wanted to clarify that. Next. Anybody else want to read? No? No? Okay. I'm doing a good job. All right, thanks. All right, so just to rehash it one more time. So we would extend the current tax rate. This is not a tax increase.
Right.
It would add about $2.6 million in additional revenue for the city a year, which is about $65 million over that 25-year period. It'll sunset in 2049. That seems a long time, but hopefully, if we can set these things in motion now, in 2049, people back, man, they did a good job with that. We want to extend it out past that. Probably none of us may be here in 2049, but we'll see.
So it is February the 13th. It's for the Durant City voters only. That question's come up. It is the only thing on the ballot for February the 13th, unless, like me, you live in the Silo School District. If you live in the Silo School District, then there is this city sales tax proposition along with a Silo School District bond proposition. So and the Silo School desperately needs that facility as well. But we don't want to get those issues confused. The city sales tax proposition is the one that we're here to talk about tonight, and hope very much that the citizens and voters of Durant will support. So, any of the other council have any statements to make before we
take questions?
So this is a town hall. We're gonna ask for questions if you have any. Rebecca is in charge of the microphone. We would ask that you somehow get her attention to be recognized.
I think it's
She'll
yeah.
bring the microphone to you. There are people on television and radio who want to understand what the question is. So if you would please be patient and let her get to you before you begin to ask your question. That way everyone who's not here in person can also hear your question. And then, two, I would ask that you please, if you have questions, let's keep them focused on this sales tax proposition. That's what we're here to talk about. If you have other questions and other issues, then please wait till after the meeting. We'll still be here, and then we can have that discussion separately. But let's keep it focused on that tonight, if you will. So, if anyone has it, and I wish we were standing up. I feel overly formal here, sitting down. But if anyone has any questions, we'll open the floor. And Rebecca finally found a microphone that works, which is great. Also an inside joke between Rick and I.
So they're going to step up? Is that what's going to happen?
They'll raise their hand or whistle or shout or somehow make a motion to get Rebecca's attention.
Okay, so I saw that the conservative estimate for the total revenue over the next 25 years from the proposed repurposing of this tax is $65 million. I'm curious if anyone's done any estimates, especially assuming Durant grows somewhat significantly over the next 25 years, what the more realistic or not conservative estimate would be, roughly speaking.
And Chen, what do you think?
Well,
It's on.
the estimate that I did is I used past 15 years of our revenue, and then I take out those really sharp, the revenue or lower one. So I averaged it. So no, I did not expecting, the population growth. It's hard to project it that. Yeah, but you can know the trend is that it's keep growing. You can see our sales tax keep growing, increase. So that is the trend. And this number I projected really conservative. That's why I take the sharp one, especially when the COVID hit. That is, I don't think it's a normal way that we got the revenue. So I take it out. Yeah.
Who else? I think. Anybody? Question? That's it? All right.
Well, Mayor Tucker,
Sir.
council members, thank you for putting on this town hall tonight. My name's Mark Masidi-Miller. My sense is that everyone is supportive of and supports the need to fund street improvements, including sidewalks, lighting, storm drainage, and other enhancements. My question is it true that the tax revenue raised from this ballot proposition will be used to fund capital improvements to the water and wastewater systems because the current rates being paid by water and wastewater customers are insufficient to fund such improvements?
The sufficiency or insufficiency of those rates could be a matter of contention, could be a subject to debate. Prior to this council being elected, and I don't know, you may recall, you may not, the prior council actually lowered the rates, and during a time of historic inflation. So there's some discussion about whether we have raised the rates a little bit. Was it $4 a month? I think a few months back, which seemed like a reasonable thing to do. Again, in the light of the need and the fact that we had budgeted such a transfer from the Utilities Authority as as Dr. Mike had said, we had to have those funds to transfer over into the general fund. So back to your original question, what's the market rate, and are we charging it? And the answer, if you look at surrounding cities, I think the utility service for the city of Durant is priced very conservatively. Now, what's the best way to approach bringing that to a market price? Is that something that has a lot of appeal to the citizens and the voters, for that matter, frankly? Those are all difficult questions to answer. So from a purely math perspective, I would agree with your premise that the price is probably a little bit on the conservative side. And given a more adequate pricing, considering that capital expansion and capital expenditures and debt service were a function of, a component of that pricing model, then I would say it's very conservative. Now, how does this city go about understanding and breaking that problem down and solving it? I think that will take some time, and that will take a lot of discussion as well. This will provide much needed resource in a very short amount of time with a very little impact on anyone's pocketbook in the city of Durant, and that's why we're making this request at this time.
Just kind of piggybacking that, roughly how much money are you pulling out of the utility authority that kind of ends up by default going into streets? So that will help offset some of what the previous question was.
Last year, it was around 3. I don't remember. I didn't bring those with us. But this year, we cut it way down. I want to say, I'm staring at Ann because she might remember the budget numbers. I don't, but it's $1 million or so.
Well, for the capital that we transfer about $1 million to the capital improvement from the DCUA, and then for the general gov, we transfer about $2 million. In the past, it's averaged about 4.5 to 5 million per year, but this year.
Yes. And the idea too is that that's where those funds should be, is in support of that utility, right, and its expansion and maintenance. And so running your general fund out of your utilities authority is never good, never a good long-term plan. We hope.
I have a follow-up question. Thank you for clarifying that. It sounds like, yes, revenue from the ballot proposition will be used for water and wastewater improvements. And can you provide an estimate of how much of the tax revenue from the proposition will be used to fund water and wastewater improvements?
I don't think we can at this point, because I think part of it is, some of that wastewater improvements are going to be funded from just utilities, right? So, but I don't think we can have that at this point. I don't think I can tell you how much it would be, unless somebody else has a different. I think it's something to be determined.
Out of some of these projects that you've listed up here, do you have cost estimates on any of them?
We have cost estimates, I think, from previous on the Main Street project. We don't have cost estimates on Larkspur at this time.
That's going to be a very involved project. Part of that's also loud enough. So now once we have the ability for this funding, then we'll start looking at individual projects and engineering them out and getting cost estimates.
I'm not asking for a cost estimate or anything, but interested in, I suppose, the council's perspective on intentions, roughly speaking. on the animal shelter. We know that that has been, as soon as I moved to Durant, which happened to be about 20 years ago to go to college in 2003, even back then, conversation was occurring about how maybe we need a better animal shelter. And I know that that conversation has certainly reached a fever pitch lately. And so my question is there any intention among the council to purpose some of this money, if the tax is approved, towards animal shelter purposes, or otherwise, is there a plan for such?
So I think two questions on that. This proposition is not to give money for the animal shelter. So I think I'll be honest with you on that. This is streets, wastewater, stormwater, those type of things. However, we do have a plan for the animal shelter. As I understand it, there's some money that's been left over from a previous insurance settlement. Some theft happened at some point, and we also our goal is to take the old senior center, sell that, and we're in the process of bidding that out, or of taking bids on that, and then using that money towards animal shelter. There are some buildings within city that the city does own that may be good buildings to use, and then develop the shelter around that. So that's kind of the goal with that. I don't know when the bids are coming in for the old. Tomorrow morning. Okay. So we'll see what that looks like, and then that is part of over the next year or so. That is, I agree. The animal shelter is in bad shape. That's putting it mildly, right? So we definitely do need that, and that is in the works. Because I know we've had some trouble initially getting that set up. It's not a cheap project, but it's something that we will have funds available from other sources, so that we don't have to use the half-cent extension for animal shelter. We just don't feel like that's necessarily the intent of it. Anything to add on that, Rick? No?
Don't know if this is as much as a question as it is a comment, just for people to think about. I've lived in this town. I think I see two people that have lived here maybe longer than me and my family have, and the problem has always been drainage and streets and wastewater. That's always been the issue, and it's been kicked down the road for so long. So one of the things I wish you all luck in dealing with this issue, as it's been a lot of years in the making. But here's another way that we need to look at this. If you don't do this, it'll end up crippling the town, because all the growth that we have occurring right now, we cannot support. Housing and growth can be a bad thing if you don't have the water and the utilities and the things that we need to meet that, and it's going to end up being a mess. And that's one of the problems Durant has always done, is they put the cart before the horse, and they do all the housing additions, they do all that stuff, but we don't have the infrastructure in place to take care of it. And so another way that we need to look at this is, if you don't do this, it will literally end up crippling this town, because it's one of those things and I know it's not a tax increase, but nobody likes to pay more taxes. But this is my hometown. It's where I've always lived. Hope I live here for the rest of my life. But I've just seen this forever. And if we don't do something to start dealing with it and handling this issue correctly, it's only going to get worse. And all the growth in the world isn't going to be good. It's going to be bad, because we're going to have to support that, and we don't have the money to do it. So it's got to start somewhere. So maybe another way to look at it is look at it backwards. If we don't do this, we're absolutely in trouble.
We will definitely be left behind. You've got 30.
I think the main thing we have to remember here is, yes, this is tax that's coming towards our city government, and at the end of the day, it's trust, right? We have to build trust that we are going to spend this money the most appropriate way possible, and that's hard. That is a hard thing to do, to put your trust in something that is not tangible, right? We can't do anything but prove ourselves. And so at this point in time, we have worked really hard to start laying a foundation for our future that can't be undone, to put management in place that is going to take care of us in the way that needs to be done for our future. And so we are working tirelessly as a council to make sure that we are building that foundation in a way that we don't revert back, that we move forward from here. And so all we can do is ask you guys to continue to communicate with us and continue to help us through these decisions. But at the end of the day, we have to have a little bit of faith, okay?
Thank you. Oh, believe me, I want some money for infrastructure improvements in the city, and I really would like to support this. But I have a lot of questions about how some of this is written, and it gets to that, you know, really understanding. But one of it, Dr. Mike commented on the debt service, which I understand that, and I also would not be opposed to pre-funding some things with bonding. But this also says that it can be used to pay obligations heretofore issued. And so that's a concern. Is this going to be used for new projects? You know, I noticed that in the fall we had a big expenditure for the wastewater plant, and in that motion it wasn't clear when the funding was coming for that, except it said future sales tax revenues as one kind of guarantee to that. So I guess part of my question is this really more forward-looking for new funding, or is it going to be used to pay for some of past debt?
So the goal is this primarily, and the reason that it is a 25-year sunset or a 25-year term is for it to be forward-looking and forward-focused. Now, the lawyers and the bankers and everyone involved in this so forth process up until this point have said this is the best way to write this, and so that's what we've done. Now, the city does have some debt, and as you know, money's fungible. And so if we paid off that debt now, then we would have that money that was going to make those payments available for the future. So it's almost kind of a, now we're into a time value of money calculation of which way benefits the citizens the most. Now, does it matter if we pay that off and then borrow it again later? I don't know. Again, it's a time value of money conversation to have with the people that understand that. The wastewater treatment, which is infrastructure, which is one of the things that you spoke about, the city has borrowed a bunch of money, and we didn't want to. We were forced into that, and I'm not happy about it. I'll be honest with you, I'm not. But again, there's nothing I can do about that. That's the hand we're dealt, and we're playing it. If we have this capacity from a funding perspective, that we can prepare for and get ahead of and take care of things, and we can prevent those kinds of situations from happening to the citizens in the future. And that's what we're trying to accomplish by having a funding source and mechanism available to the city to pay for things as they're needed to be paid for, which may include taking on some debt and may include paying off some debt. And so that's the thought process for that verbiage being in that resolution the way that it's written. But it wasn't the plan to, as soon as we get this passed, to go borrow all the money we can borrow and spend it all right away and then leave everyone else with the payments as we ride off into whatever. That wasn't the thought at all. So again, it's a matter of what matters and when, time value of money, what makes the most sense, and then have the capacity to operate within that environment. And again, money's fungible, so whether we pay for it now or pay for it later, it just depends on where we sit in that whole situation. I hope I'm speaking clearly. Am I?
Sounds good.
Okay. This next question's for Danny. He's ready for it. Right? Well, when you say the expenditures back in the fall, we haven't really spent very much money. We spent some, we've ordered some things, we've paid for some things. There is a 2-phase plan to bring the water plant back up to where it needs to be, and also expand its capacity, which obviously needs to be done as well. I don't know how much we've spent so far, Curtis, to be honest with you, but I know the total price tag was in the $30 million range off the top of my head. We haven't spent that money. It's going to cost about, again, didn't have a right, and we got that money borrowed, and we did all that in advance of or prior to this proposition. So whether this proposition occurs or not, that deal is done. Okay, but that 1% and the other tax that we're receiving now is all we have to pay that back with. So then what does that do? Again, this time value of money and it being fungible conversation. Now what do we do about the rest of the things? What do we do about the growth? Where do we get the money for that, right? And so that's the proposition, that's the conversation, that's what we hope that the citizens can understand, that we need those funds to not only repair the things that need to be repaired, to bring the infrastructure back up to where it should be, but also to grow the city and to attract more capital investment and more growth and more opportunity into our city. That's the hope. That's the goal. I said this is for you. You did a good job. Okay, here, this one's. Oh man, that doesn't even count. No, that's not an infrastructure question.
I'll just say I've lived here all my life, and I definitely see the need for this. I mean, I've seen what I can remember when Durant did not have a 1 cent capital improvement sales tax. I remember when we did not have the 1/4 cent economic development tax. And I've seen what those taxes have done for the city, and this 1/2 cent, I have great faith in. It will certainly help us, and I have faith in our city leaders and our city people in using it to the best benefit.
I'd just like to add that I don't only want to direct this money to any kind of, I know it's going to go to new projects, but of course we have a lot of old infrastructure downtown and all over town that needs repaired, and I'm hoping that we can get some of that stuff taken care of with this tax money, because we don't need to just focus on new stuff coming in. We've got a lot of people that's put up with a lot of problems for a long time, and we need to take care of those problems.
Any other questions?
Jesse Dalrymple's my name. Is there anything going forward to do the advertisement to try to sway everybody to actually vote for this? Because right now, whenever I talk to everybody where I work at, I'm like, hell no, I'm getting rid of that 5 cent tax or the tax. I'm tired of being taxed. I'm paying taxes on everything I got. So is there anything like advertising except for the news or social media?
Yeah, so we're trying. It gets close to it. It's kind of it's kind of an election that's it's kind of in just kind of a random day in February, right? So when you start, we've been starting to work and talk to people and campaign for it. But if you start too soon, then people aren't going to be paying attention. A lot of people don't really go vote for this either because they just forget it's a random day in February. So, but we are working hard to get this passed. As we go, we've talked to our civic groups here in town. We've talked to other people here in town. So we are working hard to campaign for this. Like I said, we are doing those things. There'll be a bit more over the next week and a half, 2 weeks as we go into. You'll see more about it. So I think we are doing that. I think once people start to understand that it's an extension and not a sales tax increase, and I think once they kind of understand the purpose of it, I think we can sway them in the right direction. But like I said, sometimes it's difficult with taxes. I understand nobody likes to pay taxes, and you know, it's kind of one of those things. But we are working at that. We're not just sitting, just talking to y'all. We are out there talking to people, calling people, doing those type of things. So
I think what most people expect to see when you're talking about marketing for this, right, is to see signs out going, vote yes, everybody vote yes for this. But what most citizens don't realize is the city's not allowed to pay for those marketing materials. It's against the law. And so we cannot print signs via the city. Only those who are in support of it that would like to do it and put paid for by on those signage may do that to advertise and to market for the city, but we are not allowed to do that. So all we can do is spread word of mouth, and so that's why you're not necessarily seeing commercials, you're not seeing signs out on the sides of the road, because we simply aren't allowed to use city funds for those purposes.
as private citizens, we can, and I've given handouts and stuff like that. It just can't be, you know, like he said, the city cannot say, hey, go out and vote for this. They're saying, hey, this is what we can as individual council, but the city itself just has to give you the, hey, this is the information and this is why we're hoping for it. But there are some groups that are going to hand out some literature and put some signs out and some things, so that is in the works. But like I said, it's such a, it's not like the presidential campaign, right? Where everybody's paying attention, and you know, with primaries coming up, there's a lot of money involved. It's not like that. So, and we just need to keep. Well, there'll be some advertisement, but it's not to the exposure like you see in presidential campaigns or state or gubernatorial elections. It's a lot more focused on just the city, so it becomes a little bit less. But we are trying to push those things. Good question.
If there aren't any more questions, we'll wind down the meeting. We're not trying to rush anybody off, but okay.
A lot of people are asking are why we done sales tax. And a lot of you know me. I'm Rick Rumsey, the interim city manager. I've learned a lot in the last year I've been in Durant. When you drive the streets, you definitely see they need some work, major work. But you also notice we have a lot of visitors at Durant every day. And they're driving these streets. They're using the water. They're using the sewer system. And that's why we decided to go with the extension of the sales tax. It's not the burden of the city of Durant to pay everything, the citizens. It's spread around. And we thought that was a very important step. And because this population grows in this city every day by visitors. And that's very important. Another thing going around is, will this affect my property tax? This has nothing to do with your property tax. It is a sales tax. In Oklahoma, property tax don't come to the city. So.
Well, before we end, I want to reiterate, this is not a tax increase. This is not a debt. This is not anything new as far as the amount of sales tax that the people that purchase things in the city of Durant pay. But we are asking the citizens to extend it and to allow the city to reallocate it for a different purpose. And we think a good purpose. So with that being said, if there aren't any more questions, and again, I'm not trying to rush anyone off, I'll make a motion that we adjourn this special city council tonight.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those city council members in favor of adjournment will signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed will say nay. We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.